Heya Cryptozens, it's 10 p.m. Pacific time. My name is Nikodemus, and welcome back to the Crypto Overnighter, where we take a nightly look at the crypto, NFT, and metaverse space. And keep in mind, nothing in this show should ever be considered financial advice. And here we are back again on a Friday night, 10 p.m., December 23rd, 2022. And tonight's first story isn't directly related to crypto, but it's kind of related. It's about a password manager. Now, a lot of people use those to secure their accounts, even if they're not a crypto account. Things like email and Twitter might well be stored in a password manager too. So keep that in mind when I tell you that LastPass was hacked again in August. It was originally thought to be less severe, but was actually much worse, a whole lot worse. The hackers took some users' password vaults, which contain encrypted personal data. They may not have an immediate way to get at it, but they still have the data. Now, LastPass CEO Karim Tuba said that no customer data was accessed during the August 2022 incident. However, some of the app's source code was taken, and that was used to trick a LastPass employee into giving their access credentials. Now, the hackers then used these stolen credentials to decrypt and copy some data from the cloud-based storage service. Now, the hackers got encrypted data that includes basic customer account information like company names and billing information, email and IP addresses, as well as like phone numbers. Now, Tuba said that this information is encrypted with a strong encryption method and can only be decrypted with a unique key that is based on each user's master password. Tuba also emphasized that LastPass does not know or store the master password. Now, honestly, I would be out. Now, I'm not advocating for any specific password manager, but I do know that I would be out of the one that just leaked my info. Yes, it's a phishing attack. Yes, these things happen. But that doesn't change the fact that they've been hacked twice in the last 2 years. That also doesn't change the fact that the hackers have at least part of the source code. So they may know more ways to get in than what we've found out so far. Now, LastPass is, at least temporarily, compromised. It's not financial advice. It's not legal advice. It is definitely IT advice. Jump ship. Find another service. Now, last night, we were talking about Sam Bankman-Fried and his bail situation. And as we talked about it last night, Assistant U.S. Attorney Nicholas Roos said that it was the highest ever pretrial bond. So let's take a look at it. Let's look at this largest pretrial bond ever. Now, a bond is a surety bond that's issued by a bail bondsman for a fee, which is typically 10 to 15% of the bail amount. In the case of Bankman-Fried, the fee for a $250 million bail bond would have been $37.5 million. However, Bankman-Fried did not pay any cash for his bail bond. Nothing. Now, another way to get your bond is by pledging collateral in the full amount of the bond. If the defendant fails to appear in court, the pledged collateral is forfeited to the court. Now, in Sam's case, that means that someone would have had to pledge property worth $250 million. However, this did not happen. Now, instead of pledging collateral in the full amount of the bond, Sam's parents promised to use their Palo Alto, California home as collateral. The home is rumored to be worth $4 million. This was the only collateral pledged to guarantee the $250 million bond. No other collateral was provided. $4 million is a whole lot less than $250 million. So what happened? In this case, SBF was not required to post a conventional bail bond. He was released from custody on a personal recognition bond, which is a promise to pay the court $250 million if he fails to appear for trial at the appointed time. Sam and his parents made this promise. So instead of paying cash for his bond, he walked out after signing an IOU. The guy's up on fraud charges, and we're just going to take his word for it. I think it's kind of ridiculous that he was released from custody by signing a personal recognizance bond. He's promising to pay the court $250 million if he fails to appear for trial. First off, he doesn't have $250 million. Now, this is considered to be an absurdly low bail requirement, especially considering the millions of dollars that he's accused of defrauding. He's potentially going to weigh for the rest of his life. He stands accused of fraud on a scale best described as biblical. He's not going to let a measly $250 million stand between him and freedom. He's had a taste of incarceration. He didn't like it. I think he'll run if he's given a chance. I got to tell you, I certainly would. Now, we have suspected for some time that Caroline Ellison ratted Sam out to avoid jail time. Now, we found out a bit more about that today because she admitted in her plea deal that she knew Alameda had access to funds from FTX for investments. That's a killer right there. Now, this admission was just part of the case that they built against Sam. Ellison stated that Alameda had access to a borrowing facility through FTX from 2019 to 2022. Ellison stated that FTX executives had set up special settings on Alameda's account on FTX.com. These settings allowed Alameda to maintain negative balances in various currencies. This arrangement gave Alameda access to an unlimited line of credit without requiring collateral or paying interest on negative balances. Additionally, it was confirmed that Alameda was not subject to margin calls or liquidation. She added that if Alameda's FTX accounts had significant negative balances in a particular currency, it meant that Alameda was borrowing funds that FTX's customers had deposited on the exchange. Now, Ellison alleged in her statement that SBF and other FTX executives borrowed funds from Alameda and then used FTX funds to repay those borrowed funds. These loans were worth several $billion. Now, she stated that most FTX customers would have expected their funds to be used for this purpose. She said that it was both her and Sam that signed off on the financial statements. These statements were materially misleading for Alameda lenders, and she admits to knowing it was illegal. Ellison expressed remorse for her actions, of course, saying that she knew it was wrong. I think it's a load of crap. Remember that video where Caroline is on a podcast sitting between those two guys on a couch talking about how she doesn't believe in stops when trading? All the while she's trading and losing other people's money. The arrogance on display in that scene tells me she knows exactly what she was doing. She just didn't think she'd get caught. She's not sorry she did it. She's sorry that they made her stop. Ellison's plea deal was released on December 21st, and that deal resulted in many of the charges against Sam being dropped for her. So she's not facing charges of wire fraud and securities fraud, for example. Now, she may still face prosecution for criminal tax violations. This agreement required her to pay a bail of $250,000 and surrender all her travel documents. This is compared to Sam's agreement that allowed him to be placed on home detention with an anklet bracelet after not paying a dime. So Caroline lost on that deal too. Craig Wright may be giving up on proving that he is the creator of Bitcoin. In 2016, Wright claimed to be the inventor of Bitcoin, but provided questionable evidence. He has filed lawsuits in court over this claim, including one for libel and one for copyright infringement. He was successful in having the Bitcoin white paper removed from a website. Now, Wright has been trying to prove that he's the creator for 6 years. He suggested on Twitter that he will no longer try to prove that he created Bitcoin. He said that he's been angry for too long and no longer wants validation from others. Wright said on Twitter that he no longer cares what other people think. He said he only wants validation from his family, and he made these statements after a judge stated that Wright has not proven that he's Satoshi in that defamation case against McCormick. Now, despite saying that he will no longer try to prove that he's the creator of Bitcoin, Wright still claims to be Satoshi on his Twitter profile and his website. He also stated on Twitter that he will never stop working to achieve his goal. Now, in related news, Wright has been given permission to appeal a Norwegian court ruling related to his claims. In October, a judge ruled that a person named Magnus Granath, or Hodlnaut, was allowed to tweet that Wright is a fraud and a scammer for claiming to be Satoshi. The Norwegian Court of Appeals has granted Wright the right to appeal a previous ruling related to his claim to be the founder of Bitcoin. Wright's lawyer stated that this means that the Court of Appeals will hear Wright's case and make its own decision. Now, Wright's lawyer stated that the case includes non-economic interests and may also raise important legal principles for the court to address, such as defamation, protection of personal information, and harassment. The lawyer for Granath said that the decision to allow Wright to appeal is not significant in a jurisdiction where cases can be heard twice. Now, Wright's lawyer previously stated that Wright would appeal the case because anonymous online bullying could have a negative impact on public discourse. Granith hoped to use the Norwegian case to prevent a negative ruling in the UK where defamation laws are stricter. And we certainly saw that when Wright was awarded £900,000 in costs in that case against McCormick. Wright was previously given only nominal damages in this case, with the judge stating that Wright provided false evidence. Now, to my mind, he should get nothing for that alone. Nothing maybe but some time in a jail cell to contemplate the sin of perjury. Now, the judge in Granith's case ruled that Granith had sufficient reason to tweet that Wright is a fraud and a scammer. They said that because witnesses at the trial showed inconsistencies in the documents that Wright provided to prove his claims. So I wonder if that has influenced his decision to stop fighting this in court. OKX has published its second proof of reserves on its website. Hadir Rafiq is their chief marketing officer, and they tweeted out that the exchange plans to share its reserve status monthly. OKX has announced a new feature that allows users to view the exchange's reserve ratios, verify on-chain assets, and download data. The second proof of reserves showed that OKX has more than enough Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Tether to handle all their withdrawals. This is similar to levels previously shown a month ago. Now, OKX is hoping that releasing proof of reserves will increase transparency and restore some trust between users and crypto exchanges. Rafiq said, publishing proof of reserve results monthly shows their commitment to transparency and trust in the industry. Now, that said, I'm not sure about all this. I am not convinced that a proof of reserves attestation is a great indicator of an exchange's health. Proof of reserves doesn't take into account any debts or liabilities encumbered on those reserves. It really doesn't indicate whether or not that money is spoken for. It's basically just their current total. It doesn't say anything about what bills are coming due. Now, OKX's announcement came shortly after an official from the SEC warned investors to be cautious about relying on crypto companies' proof of reserves. The SEC's acting chief accountant, Paul Munter, stated in an interview with the Wall Street Journal that these audits do not necessarily show that a company is financially stable. He also noted that proof of reserve reports by exchanges lack sufficient information for stakeholders to determine if the company has enough assets to meet their obligations. Because make no mistake, the SEC is coming for your audits. The SEC is paying attention to the audits of cryptocurrency companies as a way of protecting investors. A senior official from the SEC said that investors should not rely too much on proof of reserve reports from audit firms. Now, it looks like Paul Munter agrees with me, because he said that these reports do not provide enough information for investors to determine if a company has enough assets to cover its debts. And I get it. After FTX collapsed, several cryptocurrency exchanges announced that they would publish transparency reports or proof of reserves to calm worried investors. Because people were scared. FTX was huge, and out of nowhere it just, poof, imploded. So people were looking for some sort of reassurance. They placed their hope in something called a Merkle tree. Now, this Merkle tree shows the stability of holdings on exchanges while protecting privacy. And while it maintains privacy, it does allow users to verify the stability of their holdings on the exchange. The SEC is warning investors and audit firms that if it detects problems, especially concerning, quote, fact patterns, it may refer that as a case to the enforcement division. Now, one of the things that has people spooked is Binance, specifically Binance's proof of reserves report. Because the report was released, but then taken down 2 days later when the auditing firm, Mazars, said that they are no longer working with cryptocurrency firms. Actually, according to the Wall Street Journal, Binance was looking for another audit firm after being dropped by Mazars. Binance said that it reached out to several large firms, including the Big Four, but they were not willing to do a proof of reserves for a private cryptocurrency company. And I think we can see why. I wouldn't want my name and reputation attached to auditing an exchange when I only got to see half the equation. You show me your assets on your Merkle tree. Where are the liabilities? Maybe I should close out things with a little bit of good news for us here. The Internal Revenue Service has delayed new requirements for third-party settlement organizations like PayPal and Venmo to report transactions over $600. The IRS said that this delay will help reduce confusion during the 2023 tax season and gives taxpayers more time to understand the new reporting requirements. Doug O'Donnell is the acting IRS commissioner, and he called this year a transition period. Now remember, the American Rescue Plan of 2021 lowered the tax reporting threshold for business transactions to $600 per year, which was a ridiculous drop from the previous threshold. It used to be that the threshold was, quote, more than 200 transactions per year, exceeding an aggregate amount of $20,000. Now, the IRS stated that the new requirements are not intended to track personal transactions such as sharing the cost of a car ride or a meal or holiday gifts, even paying a family member or another person for a household bill. The IRS added that the new reporting requirements will go into effect on January 1st of next year. They also said that tax compliance is higher when amounts are subject to information reporting. They said that care must be taken to ensure that 1099-Ks are only issued to taxpayers who should receive them. They also said that brokers will not be required to report additional information on dispositions of digital assets until final regulations are issued. They added that brokers must still comply with existing laws and regulations, and taxpayers are still required to report income received from transactions involving digital assets. And that's going to do it for us tonight. I want to thank you, my listeners, because when you stop listening, I will stop talking. We'll see you tomorrow night.